Greetings, Mr. Ryan, and this is Ganesh from WIMPLO. I'm a senior journalist over here. So, can you please introduce yourself and what inspired you to choose the risk-fused industry? Also, what made you to choose to start with S2?
Yeah, sure. Hi, and nice to be here talking to you about security tokens and all that. For the ones that don't know me, my name is Ryan Morrison, and I'm the founder of it's called BlackFox Network. And basically what we do is we work on everything that has to do with security tokens. So we're kind of a community for the security token industry. Okay. Where we gather like different players from the investment side, but also from the businesses that are trying to learn about security tokens and service providers, and that's in a nutshell what we do.
Okay, so is it compulsory to become a member of the BlackFox community? If not, what are the advantages of becoming a registered member over non-members?
Sure. No, it's not mandatory to be a member. We have a lot of free members of the community and some premium members, and then mainly the main difference is that the premium members get to see more information. So, for example, we do interviews with the founders of projects, and we put the full interviews mainly for our premium members. And also we organize some special events and roundtables and that are mainly for the premium members. But we also do a lot for everyone. So, for example, we do usually once a month a meetup about security tokens. We do it now in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, and it has been pretty successful. And then we thought it makes sense to keep it open, so you don't have to be a member of the network to be part of it.
Perfect. So, what it takes to be a member in BlackFox?
It depends. It's mainly, and maybe I should take a step earlier and explain how did we get to this network. I've been involved in crypto since already a few years, and I have a marketing background. So I started doing interviews and for myself, mainly just as a crypto investor. I wanted to know, when I was getting involved in an ICO, I wanted to know if the team behind was a real team and it was not a scam. So then I started to basically do my own due diligence, my research, and that was the last part of the research, contacting the team. So I would do videos like the one we're having now, and I thought, well, I might as well just record those sessions and then put them on online for everybody to see. So then it might be also useful for other people that are investing in ICOs. And from that, I grew a community called Blockchain Markets, mainly around utility tokens and to talk about different projects. And that evolved more into what is today BlackFox Network, which is much more on the security tokens. But to go back to your question, basically we have a model of everybody is accepted in the community, and we have a lot of discussions online and offline, mainly about where the regulations in different countries are, businesses that are planning to run a security token offering, to learn about a different way to raise capital, not the normal way through different VCs, and but a much more digital way, more compliant way of doing it if you compare it to ICOs. And that's mainly the model.
Okay, interesting. So, what are the USPs of BlackFox X2 that prompt you, to claim yourself as one of the most thriving STO community?
So we think that, initially we thought that this industry is really, really in the early days. So if you compare it to the ICOs, we saw that ICOs have raised something around 15 to 20 billion dollars US, and if you compare it to the STO market, which is the more compliant side of things, it's less than 1 billion. But it has a lot of potential, and then we saw that as we thought, in order to grow this community, we need to get together with all the members of the industry if we want to really create this industry. So then we started to partner with a lot of different service providers and issuing platforms and lawyer firms, accountancy firms as well, and businesses that wanted to learn how to do it for themselves. And that's why we think that we haven't, at least me, I haven't seen another community on as specific and as close, where the members are so close to each other and actually doing actual events on security tokens. So we are, like I said, we do also not just online, but also a lot of things offline, like the meetups, for example. That's something unique in the security tokens. And just to give you a bit of background here, I haven't seen any security token meetup at least in the Netherlands or in Northern Europe for what I've seen. There's only one that was in London, but one made by a company. But I haven't seen a community-driven approach to that. I think in that case we are the first one.
No, that's interesting. So besides giving the services, you're also educating the community for people to have better awareness about STO. So they make an informed choice when they go for STO, right?
Yeah, basically we want to just educate them, and then when they have questions, then we can help them, or if we cannot help them, we connect them with another member of the community. So for example, then we had questions through our website or our company that is thinking and running a security token offering, but it's based in Germany, for example. And then they know the German law, but they know that it's not yet that developed. So they ask us, guys, do you know what are the procedures to do it in Switzerland, for example, or in Liechtenstein, or in Malta? And because of our network, we know basically all the steps and how much does it take to get there. And we also we have local partners in each of those countries. So then if a company wants to do or explore the possibility of doing an STO in Malta, for example, then we can connect them to a lawyer firm that is one of our members. And that's the other part that is important of the membership, because then that's a way we can vet, actually, the way we can filter that a company is actually knowledgeable. So then a lot of lawyer firms say that they know about security tokens or blockchain, but that's not the truth, actually. So then that's what we do. We basically talk to them, and then we see, you guys have actually, if you're a lawyer firm, have you been involved in another security token offering in the past, and which one? And then we make sure that we can actually contact them with a business that is looking for that service, but to someone that is or a firm that is knowledgeable in the space.
So you do the background check before connecting with your members to clients. Yeah.
And that's what I think is the main unique selling point of a community-driven approach. That we do basically what they would do if they would have more time.
Yeah, that's the really progressive step, Okay, so what are the effective asset tokenization and how would minimize the losses for an investor?
For security tokens specifically, you mean?
Yeah, the asset tokenization, for example. So how minimize, you call it as effective asset tokenization, right? So how that would minimize losses for an investor?
It's difficult to say in a generic from a generic point of view, because it depends very much on the project. But for example, if I can tell you, let's talk about maybe the risk about of the illiquidity in the normal market. So, for example, now you are, let's say you are a venture capital firm, and so your job is to invest in startups, and then you invest in those startups, and then you have usually a period of around 8 to 10 years where it's completely liquid. You cannot sell, and then after this 10 years, you expect to either sell in a new in an IPO or sell to in a new round. So between those 10 years, it's a lot could happen. That company maybe doesn't, where you invested, doesn't really make it.
Yes.
Maybe they survived 6 out of the 10 years, but then you lost all your money anyway. So with tokenizing that asset, tokenizing in this case the equity of that, you could actually exit earlier, because what's going to happen is that when it's tokenized, it will be the shares of that company will be in an exchange. So if you as an investor, you can decide to either wait 10 years or even longer, or you can decide to sell it today if you want in an exchange. That's one of the main risk mitigations, because you never know what's going to happen with the startup that you invested in, or the business if it's a bit bigger. But at least you have the option to exit.
Interesting. So can you describe who your ideal investors are, and what are the opportunities, limitations, and even the regulations that should be considered before investing?
I think at this stage, because it's super early days, what we have seen is that the ideal investors for the projects that run on STO is companies that know about the crypto space. So then you have more the crypto or the venture capital firms that invest either in protocols or in crypto projects, more generic. And now are also looking to invest in security tokens. And those, I think, are the ones that if I would be them, those are the investors that should be approaching first, because they understand the benefits of the blockchain. So then if you go for another investor, that you have to start explaining first what a security token is and blockchain and blah, blah, blah. And that might take much longer to close.
Right. So can you explain how your elite members have benefited, and would you like to share a few acknowledgements in their own language or in their own words?
Sorry, could you say that again?
Can you explain how your elite members have benefited? Those who are
in the community.
Part of community. Would you like to share their own acknowledgements? If you would like to.
Yeah. So far, what we've been doing is for the sake of simplicity. We've been doing everything in English. That was an idea also in the beginning, to start also going more for local languages, especially in Europe. But then we have to also balance our team is not as big yet, and at the same time we cannot a lot of the countries in at least in Northern Europe do understand English. So since that's mainly our focus, for the moment we're just doing everything in English. Could be also that in the future we start trying to localize, and that would make sense. But I think for now, because the industry is super small, it makes sense to start with a generic approach and everything in English, and then as as long as the community, or sorry, the industry grows into other regions. For example, I saw that in Brazil, they're also exploring security token offerings. That could be also something that in the future we do it also in Brazilian Portuguese. But we could partner with a local player or something like that. But to answer your question, at the moment, it's all just in English.
Would you mind to sharing some of the acknowledgements of your elite members, if you can?
Yeah, actually, that I can ask you, or just not to mention anything on a particular company, and then getting them angry at me because I mentioned them, the information about them. I could say something more generic. We do have in the community some interesting members. Like, I think what's interesting is the banks. That they're trying to also get into the security tokens, or at least trying to understand, because that basically in some banks and in some countries they're a bit faster, but they're basically trying to understand how this technology is going to impact the business model. And that's I think it's interesting because it shows that it is something that it will change at least the way capital markets work today. And the fact that the banks are interested in learning about this and going to other meetups, it shows that it is actually going to happen. But also, we also see a lot of excitement also from businesses that want to learn about this, because also for a business, it's pretty difficult to raise capital now, and it's pretty time consuming. Usually the CEOs spend a big chunk of their time, if not everything, in raising capital. And they have to go and visit actually the venture capital firms or private equity if they're a bit bigger. And they cannot approach, they cannot, for example, tap into their own communities to raise capital. Some of these new businesses, for example, grow because of crowdfunding. So, like, let's say, and there's this company in the Netherlands that is running a security token offering, and they do computers, and then they grew because of a campaign they did in Indiegogo, or Kickstarter started one of those. So then they can also raise more capital now, going to the same user or like fan base that they have. So instead of going the normal way and raising through venture capital firms, they can raise through their own customers, people that buy the products, and their fans.
Interesting. So can you explain what is Hugget in 2019 as far as STOs are concerned? How certain are you about that?
So I was listening,
in terms of how STOs could replace the mainstream method of fundraising.
Yeah. So I think there are two things. One of the things is if we compare them to the ICO market, and the second thing, if we compare them to the normal way of raising capital through venture capital firms and private equity. If we compare them to ICOs, it's still very, very early stage. ICOs were on the one hand great because of it allowed anybody to raise capital. Because it was so easy and it didn't have any compliance in between. Like they were not asking for KYC or AML. So then some scams happened. Some people also just took the money and left, many.
Yes.
And that left a lot of smaller investors a bit afraid with the ICO market. And then I think the main difference with the security tokens is that it is different. In the one hand is because it has the compliance, so you have to know if you're raising capital through a security token offering, you have to know at any given time who are your investors and where are they located, what are the names, and so you need to do the know your customer, the KYC and the AML side of things, and then that's one thing. So you know who is investing in you, and you can give that to the authorities if they audit you. But on the other hand, also then if you're an investor and then you buy shares of a company, in this case, that are tokenized, then you know that that's a real asset there. It's not something that was just created out of blue and like it used to happen in the utility tokens. Some of them, of course, were great. The majority wasn't. But in this case, also it's you get more certainty as an investor that what you're investing is a piece of a company, is a share. So then the risk is a bit lower.
Interesting.
So the second part of your question compared to the capital markets now, it's super small. And it's not even, I think that the vast majority of the investors, normal investor and institutional investors, won't get into security tokens, I think, in the next couple of years. I think now it's for the early adopters still. And then what I see in the community, we do a lot of research about it. And then what we have seen is that it's basically funds that are the ones that are investing in this are funds that understand the technology and then they see the potential. And I think once they get to that point where you start seeing the first exchanges online now live, and then good profits and not a lot of scandals like it happened before in the ICO, I think then the bigger investors will come also.
I mean, the vast majority of acceptance will happen after some of the results happening through this.
Yeah.
Right. But at the same time, SEOs appear to be relatively new in the space, as you were mentioning. There seems to be not long-term testing of the offering as yet, right? So which may be the risk for both investor and business. Is this a valid concern, or how do you deal with such perception?
I think that the fact that it's really new, I can understand the concern of a lot of investors in investing in something that is really new. Probably, I was just talking to one platform that someone from that platform that raised on a yearly basis something around 300 million for other businesses through crowdfunding. And then he was saying that they really see it as something interesting, but they don't want to be the guinea pig. They don't want to try and then fail. So then probably will be smaller companies that will be trying this, and then when it works, then the other platforms that run crowdfunding websites, for example, or investors that invest in stocks and bonds at the moment, would also start considering as part of the portfolio also tokenized assets, but tokenized securities. But at the moment, I think it's I can understand that they see it as something risky.
True. So were you able to successfully, raise funds for some of the companies or your investors through STO?
So we're not raising capital for ourselves. What we do is like in our community we have a lot of companies that want to raise capital, and then they contact us, and then we can help them with structuring the whole procedure and contacting them with the right lawyers or the right accountants in their local regulation or way they want to raise the capital. Because that's also one other thing that I forgot to mention, is that when you want to raise a capital with a security token offering, is you have to look at the jurisdiction of your company and the jurisdiction of your investors also.
Right.
So you can, on the one hand, there are some things, there are some limitations that your company, that if your company is, let's say, based in Germany or in Sweden, for example, or in the Netherlands, you have to comply basically with the local laws for the issuing. In the case of the Netherlands, for example, and I think in Germany is the same thing. It means that you can raise until 5 million euros without having to give a prospectus to the local financial authorities. But in the cases of other countries, like I know that Liechtenstein is working something like that, in Malta, and Gibraltar as well. In their case, it might be also different, and it could be that in the very near future you could raise 50 million. So we could see also a few businesses moving there to take advantage of the local regulation, and or setting up maybe a foundation there just to raise the capital, and then so that's. But we haven't seen a lot of that yet. The other thing that we also haven't seen much is exchanges. At the moment, that's one of the big promises of security tokens, is that you would have liquidity of your asset. But at the moment, that's mainly theoretical, because we only have one or two exchanges online, live. I think that's something that will just grow massively this year. I was just listening to a podcast with the CEO of Securitize, which is one of the issuing platforms, and then he was forecasting that this year all the security token offerings will grow at something like 10 times in his
interesting
expectation. And he has been involved in the biggest tokenization of equities and funds. So then, yeah, I believe
it. Pathetic forecast, you could say. Right.
Yeah, and I think that makes sense for what I've seen in the first part of the year already. Like, we got a few funds getting raising capital with security tokens, and we're not even February. We're still in January.
Yeah.
And we've seen Neu funds from Germany raising. We have seen also some other things like T0, which is a big exchange in the States, now just distributed the tokens to the investors. So and they have to start going live as soon as possible. So then we have another exchange. Open Finance is another exchange in the States. Probably we'll see also more exchanges in Europe and in Asia, probably in Singapore very soon.
So that's very promising.
Yeah, it looks like a very promising year for the industry.
Okay, so now how is your company equipped with to address the challenges like spoofing or wash trading? Would you like to share some information on that?
Could you say that again, please?
Yeah, how is your company equipped to address the challenges like spoofing and wash trading when it comes to STOs?
Yeah, actually we're involved that much on that side of things, also not in the part of that's something that we get a lot of questions on that also, and then how we plan to do with insider information as well. But mainly what we do is just community to gather all the members and just educate. But on that side, that's something that I think the local authorities will have to look at, and also then the teams that are racing will have to also make sure that they put everything in place, so then those sort of things don't happen, like insider information.
Okay, so I understand that. So does registering the security tokens with the respective financial authorities like Securities and Exchange Commission of USA cost a lot? How are you dealing with it?
So what we have seen is that you can apply to, and of course you have to give the local authorities. So if you're in the States, the SEC, if you're in the Netherlands, the IFM, and so on, in every country. But that part doesn't cost you money, is because they don't charge. What costs is more the first part of you need to hire lawyers. The first part, you need to also work with consultants that know how the security token offering should be structured. Because it could be that you end up paying much more money if you just contact a lawyer firm, and then they just don't know about security tokens, so they also will charge you for the hours they're learning about it, and you get in charge. So then the part that thing what I would say is to somebody that is, or a business that is planning to raise capital with security token, is then you don't have to pay for the local authorities, of course. Then that is for free. What you have to pay with the cost of the security token offering is mainly in getting all the paperwork until the moment you can actually run the application. And then also do marketing. So it's usually not for really small companies. It's usually for companies that have not for really small startups, mainly because of that, because you need money up front to pay for professional services of lawyers, accountants, marketing. So it's more suited to companies that have some yearly revenue and a few years already running.
Can you give us some tentative figure as to how that could be, any tentative range of what it would cost to hire the consultants, the lawyers, or so on and so forth?
Yeah, so what we have seen so far is that, and this might change by different countries, but we have seen is something in the range between $200,000 and $500,000 to be prepared for, depending also on the kind of STO that you want to run. And that's why I was saying that it's more for companies that want to raise or that have already some revenue, because then they will need to pay upfront to all these services.
Absolutely.
To get there.
But this will have a significant obstacle for the startups to get into STO, right?
Yeah, I think at least at this moment, then I don't really see like a really early stage startup that has that is planning to do this as a seed round. Sorry. No, because then they would have to basically they would run out of money before even starting. True. It could be before a startup that already raised round A, for example. Then they got let's say 6 million or 3 million, and then mainly with part of that they could go, and then the next round they could do it as a security token offering. So then this time they can use part of that money that they raise, but also to raise for the next round and get also smaller investors, not just the classic venture capital firms. And the other thing that is also interesting for that's something also interesting for bigger businesses more than startups, is when you're a startup and then let's say you have less than a year and you don't have much traction, and then you want to sell part of your company, basically to raise capital. So you're going to have to give away a lot of your equity, and probably you'll lose the control. So that's the reason why it's not a great idea to do it immediately. Probably just my advice to them would be try to grow a little bit, get some revenue, and then with that revenue you can pay and do a security token offering. Because also by then your startup will be a bit bigger, and then we'll have some revenue, so the valuation of your company it's bigger, and you have to give away less equity than if you would have done it a year ago or 2 years ago.
That's critical. That's very critical.
Yeah, that's critical. So otherwise you're going to have maybe you make it and you did raise the funds that you wanted, but in this case you have to give away something of, in this case, your company. That's why, in my opinion, why we're seeing now a lot of security tokens being used by funds, because basically a fund is you can open and run a fund 3 and 4 and 5, and then every new fund is just, it creates new, you can start from scratch and then raise for that fund. So that's what I see mainly happening at the moment. A lot of funds benefiting from the security token offerings.
Okay, interesting. So there seems to be a lot of restrictions set by exchange platforms. For example, Binance requires formal proof of a lawyer on every token request. So what's your take on this? Yeah, I think if we take that to the security tokens, I think that's something that will happen as well. I think there will be more restrictions than in a normal crypto exchange. And at the end of the day, something also good. I mean, I don't mind to give my information to an exchange if that allows me to trade there. In the case of the crypto to crypto exchanges, it's optional for them to ask. And in the case of Binance, the one that you mentioned, they ask. I think if you want to increase the amount of trades that you want to do, then you have to give a bit more personal information. That if you compare it to fully compliant STO exchange, in that case will be, in order to open an account, you will have to give your personal information already. You see that as a good outcome.
Yeah, I see it as a good outcome, because in this case also, if we want the whole industry to grow and not just crash like the ICO market did, it would have to be something more compliant. And then the only way to be more compliant is to give is to do all the KYC and AML properly. So I see it as something good, actually.
That's interesting. So does your company have any plans to offer a dual token structure like utility and security? No, we don't have any plans to do an STO for ourselves, and it's mainly we just want to help the whole industry grow, and also contact a lot of different members of the community and help them with as much as we can. But no, it's not in our plans to do our own security token offering. Interesting. So would like to add would like to share any other thoughts with our viewers?
Yeah, I think like what I was saying before is that this year is going to be really crucial for the industry, and then we'll see a lot of new businesses, maybe bigger businesses as well, running security token offerings. The other day I was talking to a couple of companies, and then one of them is thinking of doing something in the region of 100 million euros security token. So far, we have seen a few smaller ones. Some big like T0 and some others, but it's mainly smaller ones of 2, 3, 5 million. So then that's something also that is interesting for the whole community to see how is it going to develop this year. And yeah, I think I would like to thank you for the interview and for your viewers also. And if you want to follow what's happening on the security tokens market, just go to BlackFox.network, and then you can follow us and also on Telegram, but mainly just go to BlackFox.network and just join our newsletter. We do weekly newsletters, just keep you informed on everything that is happening in the security token scene. Yeah, that's it. We also do meetups for the ones that are seeing this in Europe. We probably will be in your country soon. If you're in the Netherlands, we're running a meetup on security tokens on the 20th of February. And we're planning also to do a bigger conference in the beginning of the summer in Europe about security tokens also.
That's nice. Thank you very much, Mr. Ryan. Thanks for your time and sharing your thoughts. And we appreciate your taking time from your busy schedule and sharing your vision and the thoughts about STO. It's really very educative. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Eman.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.